Right, year 11. Relatively quick one today, not like the marathons we've been looking at in the last 4 presentations. We're making a start on component 2 section B's, which by nature are a little bit more formulaic, not absolutely, particularly one I'm going to start off with today, but nonetheless a little bit more formulaic, so we might be able to get through them a little bit more quickly. The one that I'm going to start off with, actually rather what I will start off with today, is actually just reminding you of the specifications for the exam. So exam board, what does it need to say that you need to know? First of all, the section, as you know, is entitled Transactional and Persuasive Writing. Obviously, you should know your list of persuasive techniques now. I'll go through them later on, particularly with reference to speech writing, but you should be pretty familiar with persuasive techniques over the years that you've been doing that as part of your non-fiction. Transactional, obviously trans across, so it's actually to do with communicating things to other people and it being part of the dialogue, if you like, but translating communication to other people. In the exam, you'll be given 2 questions. You're required to answer them both. Unlike in C1 section B, where you get a list and you just choose one, in this one, you will be given 1 hour, in which time you have to answer 2 of them given, which is a letter, an article, a review, a speech, or a report. The speech sometimes known as a talk, which I know came up in your mock, but the 2 that you are given, you have to do both. So you do need to know how to approach them all, okay? Recommended that you spend 30 minutes on each one, okay? Which sounds like quite a long time in a 2-hour exam. Half of it obviously is committed to your section Bs. But when you've got 5 minutes planning, and I said last time round that these exams are very, very attritional by nature. The section A on C2, the comparison of 2 texts, of 2 non-fiction texts, is a really, really difficult one to get right, because you're answering 2 questions, if you recall, on one text, 2 on another text, and then 2 comparing those 2 texts. So it's quite an intense 1 hour, that one. And you've got to go straight into your section B thereafter. 5 minutes planning is absolutely nothing. As I said last time as well, you really haven't got time in this one to sit down there, twiddle your thumbs a bit, rest on your laurels, have a bit of a rest. Clear your mind for 10 seconds, but so you need to approach these quite formulaically. You need to know exactly what you're going to be doing. Difficult to do in the creative writing, as I said, but hopefully last time, not only did I give you some ideas and some activities and exercises that you could be looking at in terms of actually your creative element of the narrative writing, but also a formulaic approach as much as you can in how to approach it. This one, you can do that a bit more easily. 5 minutes planning, nonetheless, I'll run through, and then only 25 minutes writing for each one, okay? Each of those is out of 20 marks, made up 12 marks from the comms and organisation, and 8 marks for your VSPAG each one, and each one is between 300 to 400 words, which is a big ask in itself. Okay, so very, very importantly, when it comes to these ones, I'd say context is absolutely key. When you get given each of those tasks to do, you don't have to go in some weird trance or anything like that and think exactly placing yourself at a particular time and place. But it is important that you're actually thinking about and trying to actually engage with that which you're being asked to write about. So you have to be thinking about the question, the who's. Who is your audience? Who is it you're writing it to? You have to be thinking about where would that particular format or that particular mode be set. You're thinking in terms of if it's a letter, well, who's the letter to? Yes, your audience, but actually what is the context of the letter? If it's an article, what type of publication would that article be in? And the why is the purpose of it. Why are you writing that particular thing? Beyond persuasion, beyond transaction, sometimes you can be a bit more specific. Okay, so you do need to be thinking about context. You also need to be thinking about content, okay? And I'll be going again into this, but a lot of students actually think, well, I know my persuasive techniques, I'll simply get loads of those down. The key to it, if you're going to do that, the chances are you're not going to get much more than a level 5, maybe a level 6. The key to it, in terms of success here, level 7, 8 and 9, is making sure that you are thinking about the actual content. Yes, you can apply some technique to that content. Yes, you might know aspects of formatting. Yes, you might actually be very, very clear about who the audience is, what the mode is, and so on. But it has to be the sophistication of that content. Okay, and again, I'll go into a little bit more detail in that later on. The first one I think we're going to look at is the one which is probably more closely related to that which you've been doing, to creative and narrative writing, which is reviews. Okay, and we're going to look at different types of reviews. Now, first of all, what is a review? And obviously you can pause this and you can write down definitions and clarify what I'm saying in your own mind as we go along. But definition of a review is a critical appraisal of a book, play, film, video game, event or performance. And the key bit there is that it is personal criticism. It's your opinion. Okay? And it's an appraisal. By an appraisal of that we mean an evaluation. What was good, what was bad. If it was all good, brilliant. If it was all bad, so be it. Okay? But it's about your personal opinion and how you're going to communicate that. So an evaluation of one of those things based on personal opinion, often assigned a rating indicating its relative merits. And very often in the sort of graphological sort of aspects of these things, you might see 5 stars or 4 stars or 1 star or no stars or whatever. And that's what it means by an indication of relative merits. But it's saying how good or bad you think something is. Okay? Now, a particular area of review which is a little bit different is travel writing. You might get a bit of travel writing which is more formulaic, like the ones that I'll go on to when we look at films and books. But travel writing by nature is one which tends to be a little bit more creative, and that's why I said this is a little bit of a crossover between your creative writing section B C1 and the C2 here. Okay, but it still has those elements of review in it. Okay, this is an area of North Wales which I used to go to a great deal. This is just a piece of travel writing, or a review if you like, that I wrote. You can see what I mean about why it's actually got a creative element to it, but also it's got some other things in there which make it a review. So, we've been told to simply go and explore, my brother and I. So that's what we did, armed with sticks, which we slashed around like medieval warriors, scything down any vegetation in our path. We advanced up the mountainside, our petrified enemy flocks of bleating sheep which panicked and scattered in all directions. 20 yards ahead of me, then we still thought in yards, feet and inches, not metres and centimetres, my brother called out, "Look what I found." He was standing solemnly, like someone at a graveside, looking down to the ground. I dashed to his side. "What is it?" I shouted excitedly, and then too halted in my tracks. Before us was the carcass of one of our foes, a ram. Only now its bones were cleaned smooth by the driving rain, blown dry by the whipping wind, blanched in the searing sun. Its tufted and straggling fleece hung loosely in its bony frame, and hooked thistles twisted through its arched ribs. But what fascinated me was its skull, socketed eye holes and protruding incisors, curled horns. There it is. "What have you got there?" my mother asked as I laid my prize on the dining table. "A ram's skull," I stated proudly. "We found it in a field," I continued, gesturing the direction behind the cottage in which we were staying. "We'll get it off the table," growled my father. "We've got to eat off that." My first trip outside London, 1977, 6 years old, just, Dolgellau, North Wales, the mountains of Snowdonia. Would I have picked up that skull now? No. Would I have been worried my own child doing so? Yes. And no doubt insisted she go and wash her hands immediately, then scrub that dining table with disinfectant, throw that skull away. Instead, it was a souvenir which I took home and sat on the shelf in my bedroom. I don't recall much else about the holiday, save the sound of the farmer in whose cottage it was snoring in his sleep, and nocturnal peeing in the bucket in the adjoining bedroom to ours. Also, scampi in the basket in the local pub. Just a collection of jumbled memories, and that skull. But I do remember loving that holiday. It was my first, you see, probably the best ever. The 1970s were not big on health and safety. Perhaps that's what made kids a little more adventurous then, less worried, more like kids. But even now as an adult, surely that's what makes travel so enthralling, exciting and enticing. It's not simply that element of escape, but also that element of exploration, finding the adventurer in all of us. Perhaps if you all approached our holidays with the curiosity and excitement of a child, we'd find out a whole lot more about the world and even ourselves. Go explore. Okay? Now you can see why I said it's quite similar in a way to a piece of creative writing, at least when you choose to do a review like that. It's very much painting a picture of a particular place. But you can see the experiences there. What I've tried to include in a review, if you like, is something which is telling my reader, telling the audience exactly what it's like, and through the creative element of it, trying to get them or helping them, as we've done before, draw their own conclusions. But there are nonetheless ingredients that we can include in here, and you can use this, if you want to pause on this one, you can use this very much as a template for how you might approach a piece of travel writing or a travel review. So we're going to start with something anecdotal. So recounting a little story about it. In the case of that one, it was my brother and I going up that mountainside, slashing all the vegetation with sticks and finding that skull. Okay? Then there might be the reveal of the place. So if you're thinking about it, if you've only got 300 words, 300 to 400 words, your recount of an account, if you like, should only be about 50 words long. So it's not a massive amount of detail in it, just painting a quick picture, but placing some people somewhere. The reveal of the place and your feelings about it. So in my case, it was saying Dargethlau, North Wales, 1977. And if you've got any facts and statistics about it, that's great. Okay, by that, if it's somewhere hot, it might be that you're saying average temperature. If it's something to do with skiing holiday or something like that, it might be very, very simply the depth of the snow and so on and so forth. Cheers. Okay. You're seeing there that also what brings it to life, just like we've done a bit of creative writing in the past, is some reported speech. So things that are said. Okay, that's all to do with your different voices as well. Okay, and that can be a good way to write in a travel review. Introduction of other characters and voices, giving away little details about them. You don't have to go into massive detail. As I said, facts about the place. Okay, it might be that if you get given asked to write a bit of travel review or a bit of travel writing or something like that, simply your innate general knowledge, having been there before, will give you a few facts. If not, generally speaking, you can make them up. Very much an informal conversational style. Okay, this is written from your point of view as a review. It's your opinion of the place, your idea of the place, so it should be in a conversational, informal style, written in the first person. Okay, you can include other language techniques. Okay, so it might be that you're including things like the metaphors and the similes in your anecdotal piece, but it might be you're also including other language persuasive techniques, things like your list of three, power of three. Things like hyperphora. So you ask a rhetorical question, but actually then you give the answer. Okay, that's what hyperphora is. So you can include not just your figurative language, not just the literary things which you might have included in your C1 section B, but some of your language and persuasive techniques as well. Additional information and comments, so you're getting additional voices in there as well. Direct address to the reader. Okay, making them feel part of it. This is what I think is obviously, ideally, in terms of purpose, trying to persuade you or dissuade you from the merits of going to a particular place if it's a piece of travel writing. So it might be you are saying, this is what I think, I really recommend that you go there. Or this is what I think, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. But it is very much a case of you and them. Okay? Structurally, ending it with some reference back to your beginning anecdote. In that one I said, you know, it's all about exploration. We were going exploring as little boys. Okay? At the end of it, I'm saying, doesn't matter if you're a little boy or an adult, it is a case of saying, go explore. Okay? Have the world and yourself opened up to you, if you like, through the process of travel. So that evaluative purpose. What is actually the purpose of the piece you're writing? Okay? Now, what you can do is try and emulate something like that yourself. Okay? You can be thinking about it in terms of somewhere that you've been on holiday, somewhere which was successful or not. Okay? And actually simply trying to write a piece of travel writing. Starting with your anecdote. Think about the thing that somehow really summed up that holiday for you. Okay? And that one for me was over 40 years ago. Right, next one. This is slightly different, and like I said, it's a little bit more formulaic. This is how we might write a review and the content for a review for film, TV programs, music, books, games, things like that. Okay? So I have included on the next few slides some actual examples of some film reviews for you to have a look at. So read them, but also you can obviously find other things online. There are reviews everywhere that you can find online. And particularly with those films which you know a bit about. Because it might be a question that comes up, write a film review of your favourite film, write a review of an event you've been to which is thoroughly disappointing, whatever it might be. But have strong feelings about it, be they positive or negative in terms of opinion. They do differ from travel articles, as they are a little bit more formulaic. They do also include quite a lot of factual information, okay, which you wouldn't be expected to know. So to clarify this for you, I've written here, obviously this can take some online researching, But you shouldn't worry about that too much. You should write about that which you know and not worry about the detail which you don't. The key point being is this is a test of your technique and appropriate writing style rather than cinematic knowledge. You're not going to get marked down if you don't know particular details of a film, a program, a piece of music, a book and so on. Okay? It's that which you do know and how you actually apply the techniques you do know as well. Okay? These are the things which should go into a film review. Okay? So you will have there a headline expressing an opinion. It can be a pun, it can be a play on words, it can be alliterative. Some people dispute whether you need to include that. I wouldn't spend, considering you've only got, you've got your 5 minutes planning in which you're thinking about and gathering and collating information. I wouldn't spend a great deal of time coming up with an amazing headline, and I wouldn't actually put it graphologically in big bold letters. You'd simply write it as if you're writing a title. But a headline might be relevant, even if all the headline is the title of the film. If you can make it something which right from the point at which your article starts, your review starts, it is expressing your opinion about it, then it obviously tells the reader straight away what they're going to be reading about and actually the tone of it. Okay? Now these are things, again, which you do not, I've put here, so this one, this one, this one, these are things which if you know anything about, fine. Okay? You don't necessarily have to put them all at the beginning of your review, but you will see when you actually read the ones that I've actually put on here for you, that they will say mention a particular character and in brackets or parentheses name the actor of for that particular character. Okay, if you know things about this in where it comes in a series of films or how it relates to other films, then you might include that. But an introductory sentence: who's reviewing the film? Put it in the present tense. So I might say Mr. Hughes is reviewing. Okay, Mr. Hughes reviews, and whatever the film is. Background information, so you need obviously the film's title, which you should know. If you know things like the director, cast members, the duration and so on, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, okay? A synopsis of the movie. Okay, this is not a blow-by-blow account. This is maybe 2 or 3 sentences maximum. 2 sentences, just what is the film about? What happens in the film? Okay? You don't have to put any spoilers, you don't have to put the end of it. It's simply saying this is a continuation of this particular plot, or whatever it might be, okay, in which so-and-so happens. Other features that you need to include. First person perspective. We did about perspective last week. So this is written in the first person, I. Okay? You should also be addressing your readership in the you, okay? In the pluralized you, okay? And as such, making sure you're using appropriate pronouns. You need to make sure that you are using a voice which is appropriate to the publication and your audience, okay? If it is something to go in a school magazine or something like that, or a publication which is going to be read by your peers, by other students, then obviously you can make the voice very much your own. I said last time that one of the sort of pitfalls that students tend to fall into is simply writing in their own voice. Now that's an issue with creative writing. If it's something which is meant to be from your point of view, okay, there's not strictly a problem with you doing that and using the sort of vernacular, using the language that you might use. But obviously what the examiner wants to see, that you've got the capabilities to craft your language and adapt it for audience and purpose. So be thinking about what is the nature of the publication, who would my audience be, going back to those contextual details, but making sure your voice is appropriate. Now, again, by nature, reviews tend to be quite informal, okay? Because it's written in the first person, this is what I think, okay? So again, don't think about it too heavily, but at the same time, make sure you're including something which is colloquial and informal. You can be anecdotal, okay? Not necessarily to the extent that you do in a piece of travel writing, okay? But it might be, I went to the cinema and sat down, and for the next 2 hours of my life, I shouldn't have paid the full price for my seat because I only used the edge of it, or something like that, okay? So it can be anecdotal from your point of view, something that you have done. Within it needs to be integrated other things as well, okay? So these are things that when you come to write a film review that you could be thinking about, okay? It can be integrated into just the chronology of your piece, or you can have separate headings. Separate headings under things like comparisons to other films in a series, so how it relates to other films. Key moments, for good or bad reasons. One of the most amazing moments of this film was when something happened, or for all the hype, one of the most disappointing points in this film was. Okay? Memorable quotes, again for the right or wrong reasons. There might have been a moment which goes down in cinematic history when someone says something, and if they say it, you put it in quotation marks, okay? And again, your comment on it, your individual opinion on it, of it. It might be, I thought this quote was amazing and summed up the entirety of this film, or I thought this quote was absolutely awful and cliched, and so on. Standout performances. So which actor or actresses did very well, which ones did badly, which one do you think were good actors, what was the impact on the film? Cinematic highlights. It is a piece of cinema. How good was the soundtrack? What particular song or piece of music stood out? How did it relate to a key moment? What about the editing? What about other things to do with actually the cinematography of the film? Can you comment on those? Again, for right or wrong reasons. And anything else that you want to say about the film. It might be an aspect of animation in the film or whatever. Okay? So, other things that you should be including, okay, when it comes to the type of language that you're going to use in a film review. Sensationalized language, okay, a bit like hyperbole and exaggeration, where actually the language, and sometimes this is where words are compounded, so words are actually put together, not a blend, what we call a portmanteau, but words are put together and hyphenated to actually really make it appear sort of pretty amazing, okay, so language which can be negative or positive, which is sensationalizing something about that particular film. Use of hyperbole and exaggeration. This is the greatest film that you will ever go and see, okay, in someone's opinion. Hence, use of superlatives. This is the best film, this is the worst film. This is not only the longest film, but probably the most badly spent 3.5 hours of your life, okay? So, superlatives, EST words. Use of figurative language, okay? Lots of reviewers use similes, okay? And metaphors. You know, this is an absolute mountain of a film, okay? It's a great film. Or you might choose to use that this film was as bad as, okay? But use of figurative language. Emotive language, you're trying to get to your audience, okay? If it's a really amazing film, something emotively along the lines of, you know, it will impact negatively on your whole life if you do not watch this film. It'll change the way that you view the world. So you can use emotive language in there. Use of rhetorical questions, and I said before, and hyperphora is very common, power 3, repetition. So all of those techniques that you know can be added in there as well. Okay? And an ending restating your overall view. To sum up, or overall, I think this is a well spent £15 to go to the cinema, and so on. Okay? Again, pause it on these. When it comes to your planning, you've only got 5 minutes planning. So if you were writing a film review, something like that, then obviously it might be technique, like we said last time, when we actually had our piece of creative writing and you have your plan, that you're writing as many of these things down quickly when you get into an exam or quickly when you get into an assessment, so you can know that you can refer to them and tick them off. Okay? Right. So here we've got a few examples of it. So Dark Knight Rises, and you can see you don't have to include this bit, but you can see what I mean about the title, the date as well, cast, director, synopsis, and then the review itself. This is the bit that you should be concentrating on. And it's this type of thing which I'm talking about when we talk about compounded words, so adrenaline hyphenated filled, comic hyphenated inspired movie, and so on. Okay? Similarly, one there for Meet the Parents. You can see, very anecdotal. I recently saw Meet the Parents and was very pleased with the movie. Past weekend, I saw the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire as part of the popular Harry Potter book and movie series. It's definitely one to remember. Making their opinion very, very clear from the beginning, and then going on, and you can read these at your own pace and will about those ingredients that I've suggested you put in there. Okay? Now, when it comes to books, it's very much the same. Obviously, we're looking at the same idea, but you can do it exactly the same way. A headline, introductory sentence, who is reviewing the book, synopsis of the book, and again, all those techniques are the same. Obviously, you'd have to change some of these ideas at the bottom, memorable quotes from the book, key narrative moments. Don't give away spoilers if you can, but it's all about your opinion and how you actually feel about a particular thing. Okay? And again, you can use the language features in exactly the same way when you come to review your book. Okay. Obviously dependent on audience. What I think I'll do next time, I'll leave it there for today and pick up the letter writing tomorrow. Okay, but you've got a few ideas there about how you might choose to write reviews. Travel writing, you can do your travel writing in the way that I've done that, where you have something which is quite creative. And then you could also do your travel writing very much in the same way that you've done a normal film review or a book review. You're just obviously changing things a little bit in terms of key moments of a holiday, what we might learn about a particular place and so on. Okay? But best of luck. Give that one a go. At a time when we could all do with being abroad, I think a bit of travel writing is probably quite pleasant.